All right, well, we are going to get started. It is noon, and we'd like to get you wrapped up by 1 o'clock. Your schedule may not be as busy as it once was, but we still want to respect the hour that you've committed. Appreciate you spending this time, committing this time to Rotary for the next hour. We're glad that you're here. I think I know everybody on this call, but in case not, I'm Patrick Eakes. I live in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm the Rotary coordinator for Zone 33. And if you're not familiar with Zone 33, working from south to north, we start at the South Carolina-Georgia border. We include both Carolinas, the Tri-Cities area of Tennessee and Far East Tennessee. Tara is representing that area. Both Virginias, DC, Maryland, Delaware, and essentially the western half of Pennsylvania. So that's the footprint of Zone 33. And the Rotary Coordinator Team is a group that is designed to support primarily districts and also clubs. In our case, we cover everything outside of public image and everything outside of Rotary Foundation. That leaves membership as the dominant piece that we work on, although there are some other areas, Rotary Act, Interact, that we're also responsible for. But what we're primarily working on is membership. We do have a team of 8 that make up the Rotary Coordinator Team, and I will introduce the other members of the team during the sessions when they're going to be presenting, rather than trying to introduce everybody today. I want to acknowledge, obviously, we're dealing with some special circumstances here. We had planned to have our district membership chair training April 30 and May 1st. Next week, late next week. Obviously, we're unable to do that for lots of reasons, but we're glad that this is working out to be able to do this as a set of 1-hour sessions over 6 weeks. I do have everybody muted for now, and you are able to unmute yourself if you need to. So if that comes up, then feel free to do that. You can ask questions as we go in the chat box. I'll try to monitor that, particularly when the other speakers are on. So if there's something you want to post there, feel free to do that. Each week we're going to focus on 2 or 3 key areas. And I think all of you have received a look at what that'll be each week. And then we've got a 7th week that is kind of a summary week, and maybe we'll clear any items that are still out there and have some Q&A. Like I said, I've got you muted, but you can chat or take your mute off if you need to. I did send out this morning, and I'm going to share on the screen now our document, 5 Things Wish That All Rotarians Knew and Believed. You're going to see that come up, or you're going to see and hear that come up in some of my comments, as well as another presentation later. But I've got it on the screen if you didn't print it out, because I'm going to sort of give an overview of the district membership chair position. Now, it's worth noting that in our zone, of the 17 district membership or districts, 10 of the 17 have new district membership chairs. So over half of our districts have new membership chairs. And all 17 of our districts are going to have new governors starting July 1. So part of what this series of 1-hour sessions is designed to do is to try to fast forward to help you understand the challenges of membership, which are very real, and to understand them as well as you can on July 1, rather than getting to June 30 and saying, oh, boy, I wish I had known that a year ago. Because most of us who have served as membership chairs or as governors have had that experience of, wow, I wish I had fully understood. Membership is a challenge. And as you see in the shared screen there, from our standpoint, nothing else matters. Membership is job one. And if we don't get membership right, we make everything else more challenging. If we get membership right, we make everything else easier. We have more impact when we're growing as members. We have more energy. We're more attractive clubs. Our foundation giving should be more robust with a bigger donor base. All the things that we're trying to do, create networking and social opportunities, all of those get better when we have a more robust membership. So I'm not going to dive too deep on these 5 because you are going to hear some more about them. But it's important that those of you who are DMCs understand you are leading the most important area of Rotary in your district. There's nothing more important right now. I encourage you to take a very honest assessment of your district. Take a fresh look, take an honest look of where your district is on membership. And if you look at the numbers, looking over the last 3 to 4 years, with the possible exception of one district, we'll see how they finish out this year, your district is down in members from where it was 3 to 4 years ago. Now, you're not alone. This has been happening across North America and in some other parts of the world, but it does reinforce the challenge that we have in membership. Now, within your specific district, that honest assessment is going to include a look at some other factors that we'll be covering over the next few weeks, and some things that only you are going to have the insights on as the local leader and expert. But one of the parts of that honest assessment is you have to acknowledge that attrition is real. You are going to lose members during 2020-21. It's going to happen. And in fact, we can tell you with alarming accuracy that it's going to be around 14%. We find that that's a very consistent number. And if you don't plan for that amount of attrition next year and to exceed that much in the attraction rate or the number of members that you're bringing in, the percentage that you're bringing in, then you're setting yourself up for a year of net membership loss. So go in being honest about the fact that you're going to lose members, you're going to experience attrition, and that it's absolutely essential that everything you do is geared toward bringing in more members than you're going to lose. Now, retention is important. There's no question that retention is important, but at least in the short term, putting to the side some of the health crisis that we're dealing with, because that's a special retention issue. Retention takes a little bit of a secondary role to the attraction piece, and the reason we say that, as Terry Weaver has said and probably will say, I'll steal this one little piece of thunder, you cannot retain your way into growth. That will not be enough to grow your district. Retention will become more important as you attract more members, because we know that members in their first 2 to 3 years are at significant risk. So that becomes more important. But retention is more of a long-term project. Most of our focus will be on attracting new members. Building a membership growth culture is essential. And one of the reasons I'm glad that we have future governors here on the line with your DMCs is that you need a unified message. The DMC has responsibility for membership, but the governor needs to reinforce that message at every point. Anytime the governor has the microphone, which, let's face it, will be more than any of us wants, but the governor's going to get the mic a lot. Membership needs to be a part of that message. It is the most important thing that we're working on in Rotary, and reinforcing that message will be important. Building that membership growth culture in your district, in your clubs, is critical. Most of us come from districts where Rotary Foundation is in our DNA to some extent. In some districts, it's their primary calling card. We want membership to have the same type of focus, because again, when we are growing in membership, we're going to help that Rotary Foundation piece as well. You will not have membership success by accident. It won't happen just in the natural course of events. You're going to have to be very intentional about your strategies and your tactics to produce good membership results. You're going to have to develop a plan. You're going to have to work that plan. Doesn't mean you won't maybe have a zig and a zag here to tweak the plan, but it's going to be essential to have a plan and to work it, and to be very intentional about what you're trying to accomplish. Specific asks are important. When I'm in an audience and a person says to the 50 of us in the audience, we all need to be concerned about membership, there's no personal responsibility for me that I feel. That kind of washes over the room and everybody walks out hearing it, but feeling no personal responsibility. When I get a call from my governor that says, we've got to be tuned into membership and I need you to do X, Y, Z, I leave that call knowing I'm responsible for X, Y, Z. When a membership chair gets in touch with a club president, says, hey, I want to support you. I want to work with you on X, Y, Z. Here's how we're going to do it. That's going to have a much better impact than just broad platitudes. Building a membership team, absolutely essential. As a membership chair, you cannot do this alone. Linda and Cherie, we were talking about this earlier, they have 83 clubs. Some of your districts are as small as 40 clubs or so, but even 40 clubs is way too much for one person to give the kind of attention that membership deserves. So build out a team. Some of you have membership advocates in each area. Some of you have assistant governors who are staged year 1, year 2, year 3, or one of those years they focus on membership. You need people on the ground. You need specialists when a club says, hey, I'm interested in a satellite club. You might take that one area, but you don't want to take multiple areas where you're also the specialist for rescuing a club that's in trouble, and you're trying to do satellite clubs, and you're trying to write newsletter articles. So please build and recruit a team. You're going to hear a little bit more about that today, so I'm not going to go too deep on that. Part of your leadership position is communication. In fact, a big part of your leadership role is communication. The way you communicate with people one-on-one, the way you communicate when you're in front of a group, the way you communicate if you write a newsletter article, all of the ways that you communicate are going to be essential that you build your messaging, you reinforce that messaging, you hit it over and over and over repetitively. You can repackage it, but that you're still repetitively hitting the message so that it gets through to people. I came up as a Rotary Foundation kind of specialist person in my early Rotary days, and I had to hear that stuff 3 and 4 and 5 times for it to register. Terry Weaver probably said to me to use the term attrition 3 or 4 or 5 times before I stopped talking about resignations and things like that. Attrition is a better way to frame that because it helps us understand the percentage that we're losing. It had to hit me several times where I absorbed it and retained it. Make your messaging very specific, make it repetitive, keep hitting it. It's going to be a key part of your success. So that's as far as I'm going to go right now because I want to maintain the time that we have allotted for our 2 other speakers today. 2 of our assistant Rotary coordinators will be speaking today. The first will be Terry Weaver, and Terry, I'll stop the share. Terry is from District 7750. He lives in Greer, South Carolina, and is a member of the Greenville Rotary Club. He is our senior assistant Rotary coordinator, having been on board the longest, and he specializes not with any specific districts, but has created a lion's share of the curriculum that we use for the membership summits that we put on, and is our zone webmaster, has created a lot of the membership content that's there. And he is also our data specialist. He does a lot of work that then supports all of the districts in our zone. Our third speaker today will be Carol Burdett, who is a past district governor from District 7750. She served in 2008, 2009, and again in 2018-19. So she came in that second time knowing the score on membership. And we're delighted to have her starting her 2nd year on our team. She's a member of the Anderson Rotary Club and lives in Pendleton, South Carolina. So those are our next 2 speakers and 2 key members of our team. I'm going to mute myself now, which will probably draw applause, and turn it over to Terry Weaver.
Thank you, Patrick. Can everyone see the theme logo on the screen and hear me? Okay, I'll start with one of my favorite quotes of all time. Leaders are visionaries with a poorly developed sense of fear. and no concept of the odds against them. Now, considering y'all have signed up to be district governors and membership chairs, I'm feeling that you probably qualify with this poorly developed sense of fear. And I'm also presuming that you may have not completely grasped the odds against you. But there's more to this quote. They make the impossible happen. And that's what you've signed up for, is to make the impossible happen over the course of this next year. This is from Robert Jarvik, the inventor of the artificial heart. So my job today is to deliver you some straight talk to help you understand the odds against you. Let's talk about identifying membership challenged clubs. First, to say that this membership thing is not a district thing, it's a club thing. We have to fix the clubs at the club level in order to fix membership overall. There's nothing we can do across the district, and there is zero overall blanket strategy that we found that can be implemented across the district. It's a club thing. We found this out by a project that Chris Jones challenged me with to develop a predictive metric to identify future growth successes and challenges of clubs. This is, of course, what you also want from your stockbroker, is a predictive metric. So we set about analyzing 6 years of data from 16 districts, 846 Rotary clubs. That is a pretty large data set to be able to roll around in. And we had some encouraging results. First of all, it is not true that Rotary clubs in general are declining in membership. It is true that North America in general is declining in membership, but that's simply because more Rotary clubs are failing than succeeding with respect to membership. Many clubs are consistently growing, some districts are growing, and some zones are growing in North America and surely in all other parts of the world. But here's what we learned. As Patrick pointed out, attrition is real across the zone, stretching all the way from the South Carolina-Georgia border up now through Western Pennsylvania. On average, we lose 14% of our members a year, and all clubs lose members every year. I mean, there is a one outlier out of several hundred on occasion that has zero membership losses. These attrition rates, interestingly, are remarkably consistent from year to year. The same club tends to lose members at about the same rate, but they're widely variable among clubs. Why is that? Well, it's because some clubs are a whole lot better at retaining members than others. Now, retention. Retention is essential. And the truism of that, of course, is for every member you keep, that's one member you don't have to replace. But as Patrick mentioned, this is highly overrated. Think about this. Retention is highly overrated as a growth strategy. You can't retain your way from 22 to 25 members. You sooner or later have to go out and find some. What we also learned is that the likelihood of membership growth in any given year is not at all random. In fact, the past is a very good predictor of the future, unlike your mutual fund. The growing clubs of the past tend to grow year after year at about an 80% likelihood rate. And interestingly, also the declining clubs, those that are failing in membership, continue to fail, about an 80% likelihood of that as well. And then there's a group of clubs in the middle. I call them the stable balance or holding your own clubs. Now, those are defined as growth over a 3-year window of no more or less than 5%. In other words, a 40-member club that doesn't move beyond 38 to 42 is kind of in that middle zone. It's almost break even, if you will. Here's what the face of chronic membership decline looks like. This is a club in my own district, and this is a club that started out honing their skills at losing membership at a rate of about 1 member per year. And then you'll notice back in 2010, 2011, curiously, when a lot of people were having to choose between Rotary and groceries, they figured out a way to string 2 tiny incremental growth years together. But that former practice paid off. They got really good at losing members and accelerated that over the past 8 years or so at a 3.3 member per year rate. In other words, losing 10 members on average every 3 years. You'll notice it's almost straight line. And you'll notice also that you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar in trend analysis to see where this is going. This is going towards a 9-member club in July of 2023. Now, everything I'll be talking about today in terms of these membership trends, the caveat to this is unless something changes. And frankly, folks, that's a pretty safe caveat because in my experience, not a whole lot changes in most Rotary clubs from year to year. But in the case of this club, a new sheriff came to town last year. A new sheriff in town in 2018-19 found them with a net gain of 5 members. It is possible that they're on the road to snapping this streak. The good news is, I looked just day before yesterday, so I could fill you in on the obvious question of how are they doing at holding that ground. They have held that ground at +5 members or net 30 through this point in this year for better than half the year. They've replaced 4 members, they've lost 4 members, which for a club this size is about where you'd expect to be. So I'm encouraged. I'm not convinced, but I'm encouraged. This tale will be told over the next 2-3 years. Here's another approach. This is also a club in my district. This is a club that has grown themselves from 119 to 180 members. Would you believe that? Over this 15-year window we're looking at here. Now you'll notice they've had a couple of years of moderate membership decline, but other than that, this has been moderate membership growth, which is exactly what we're looking for. And if you wonder what moderate means, in my book, moderate membership growth is growth in the 5 to 10% range. Now you'll notice this isn't anything flashy. In fact, once you get to numbers like 180, even 5% growth is a challenge, but they've managed to add a couple, 3, 4 members each year over time, and it's given them this net growth. This is what a growth culture actually looks like. And that's what this club has, is a growth culture. We've used the term attrition, and it may be one of the first times you've heard that term in Rotary because everything that's published from Rotary International is focused on the idea of retention. Why is that, you might ask? Well, I'm told by the folks in Evanston that that's because retention is positive. And then there's also something about how that translates better to other languages. I'm not sure about that. But using attrition versus retention clarifies what this spread is between the rate we gain and lose members. Now, they're the same number. Attrition is just 100% minus retention. If you had 100 clubs and you kept 89% of your members, or 89, your attrition rate would be 11. Somewhat goes without saying, but it is beyond the math skills of most Americans. If I speak to a club and say I'm concerned because I see you have a retention rate of 86% and you're only attracting members at a rate of 12%, they just look at me like, so what? Because the two numbers are not comparable. 86% retention is true, but it's useless. If I'm a club president, I don't need to know how many members I'm likely to retain. I need to know how many I'm likely to lose, because that's how many I'm going to need to replace. So if I say your club has an attrition rate of 14% and an attraction rate of 12%, all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. They say, oh, we're losing 2% a year. They get it. So that's why the data that we're about to review together here is based on this concept of attrition rather than using the reciprocal, essentially, which is attrition. So the essential lessons are these. First of all, attrition is real. And here's how tightly compacted that is. If we look across Zone 33, the average, again, from South Carolina through Pennsylvania is about 14% a year. Interestingly, the last year for which I had full data was RI's data for 17-18. Their attrition rate worldwide, our attrition rate worldwide, is exactly 14.1%. Absolutely incredible. I also have on the screen here this idea of what is world class. Well, world class is when you get down to the life happens level. We're going to lose Rotarians. We're a membership organization. Membership organizations lose members. The average U.S. trade association loses members at 15% a year. World class is about 10%. Why do I say that? Because what I see is a bottom around 8 to 10%. And that looks like pretty much the clubs that are expert at retaining members don't have retention any better than something in that 8 to 10% range. So what that says is that if your club already has a low attrition rate down in that 8, 10, 12% range, you can't get much better by working hard at that. That's pretty much as good as it gets. Sooner or later, you're going to have to go find some new members. Now, the reverse is true. Attrition rates of above 15% need attention. That means members are voting with their feet. They voted with their wallets to come in. They're voting with their feet to leave. And why is that? Well, it's because of the club experience. As Chris Jones loves to say, members don't leave Rotary. They leave Rotary clubs. They don't just wake up one morning and say, you know that four-way test thing? I'm not really sure about that. That's not the way it happens. They leave their club because they're not happy with the experience they're getting. We've talked about retention, essential as a membership strategy, but solo, it's not going to work. Sooner or later, your attraction rate has to exceed your attrition rate. Seems to go without saying, but I think it is worth saying. And yes, if you're wondering, these slides will be available in a Dropbox after we finish up today. But you need to know your club's history. Why is that? Because I've learned in a career of problem solving, I'm an engineer like Patrick by training, and essential to problem solving, folks, is knowing exactly what problem you're trying to solve. And this is down at the club level. Is the club failing due to attrition? Is the club failing due to attraction? Or is the club failing through a combination of both, losing members too fast and attracting them too slow? Now, that being said, not all Rotary clubs are shrinking. Roughly 25 to 30% of your clubs do not have a membership problem. We need to identify who those are, help them double down on what's working and get out of their way. That brings up lesson number 5, which is essential to problem selection. I like to try to select problems that I think I have a likelihood of being able to solve. And the way you do that is you need to know exactly where and how big the problems are. Who are your growth clubs? Who are your declining clubs? And who are those clubs in that middle, in that fragile balance of plus minus 5% over a 3-year window? So that's when we created the Membership Growth Index. We've been watching this thing now for about 4 years. It's proved out remarkably well, and folks, it's dirt simple. It is simply the percentage of growth or decline over a 3-year window. Now that, of course, ends July 1st. You really can't tell anything by the ups and downs in the middle. So the data you have in front of you is July 1st, 2019, compared to July 1st, 2016. The question is, how did they get there? How did they get to success, or how did they get to failure? It could be their attrition rate. Now, I'll define the attrition rate. That's the average number of terminations versus the average size of the club. Now, this is annualized, of course. We used a 3-year average, but then the data you have in front of you is annualized. The attraction rate's exactly the same thing. The average number of new members inducted versus the average size of the club over the same window. And of course, the growth rate is simply the difference. The rate at which they attracted members less the rate at which they lost members. And you can see that in your MGI report, calculated to 0.1%. So if you'll pull up your MGI alongside you, kind of hold it over to the side of the screen. I'm not picking on anybody here, but this is a real district. And I selected this district because it has some very interesting attributes that we want to take a look at. Let me show you how to read this. First thing you look at is the attrition rate, and we're just looking at the green zone clubs, the green line clubs that have grown over the past 3 years. And what you'll notice is that the attrition rates in red, by the way, are those that are above the district average, not the zone average, but the district average. In this case, you only see a handful of clubs here that have an attrition issue. You see it one at 18.9, one at 16.7, one at 19. Yeah, these are not awful, but they're high attrition. The rest of these clubs don't have an attrition problem. In fact, the rest of these clubs are pretty darn good at keeping members. Look at these attrition rates. I told you that world class is in the 8 to 10% range, and you see some here in the 5, 4, 6% range. Incredible. Absolutely awesome. Now, I've heard, and you probably have too, I've heard it stated by Rotary directors, I've heard it stated by Rotary presidents that, you know, we in Rotary are pretty good at attracting members, we're just not that good at keeping them. Well, I can't find validation for that statement in the data. Here's a group of clubs that are really good at keeping members. It happens that the same clubs are also good at attracting members. You'll notice attraction rates here in the 10, 12, 13, 25, 30% range. Unbelievable, and it is what puts them on the Membership Growth Index positive or green line group. Let's take a look at the group in the middle. This is a little different story. But again, notice this. This idea that we're not so good at keeping them, wrong. These clubs are all really good at keeping members. However, none of them have taken advantage of that. None of them have taken advantage of the fact that they're really good at keeping members. In fact, they're mediocre at best at attracting members. They also don't fit the mantra that I hear from Rotary leadership. But take a look at this. This is really good news. These are the prior year's MGIs, okay, the years prior to 2019, and you'll notice that many of these clubs, something different has happened. Many of these clubs were on the declining, chronic decline group in the prior years. They've moved themselves over the course of this past year, or they've bottomed out and they're on a recovery. They've moved themselves over the course of this past year into this plus minus 5% range that gets them in this yellow group. So these are clubs that you should approach with some caution, but at least for the recent past, they've kind of started to get it figured out. Now let's look at the red group. This is a group of clubs you want to worry about. But again, let's look at the data. It is so important to know what problem you're trying to solve. You'll notice, first of all, that you can validate to some extent the fact that these groups are in this red line group because they've been there. It's the bottom half of these clubs are the same group of clubs that have been failing all this time. They're the clubs that cost you members in not only 2018-19, but 17-18, 16-17, 15-16. It's the same group of clubs. These clubs are failing at membership. There's just no other way to state it. There isn't any positive way to describe failure. Let's take a look now at their attrition rates. The top half of this group is not failing because of attrition. In fact, these clubs, again, are pretty good at keeping members. What they're awful at is attracting members. Now let's go look at the rest of these. Even the bottom half of the group are failing by and large because of their inability to attract members at a reasonable rate. You'll notice only a handful of those in the blue, which is above the district average of attrition rate. Let's look now at some specifics. Here's a classic. Here are a couple of clubs right together, both 24, 25 members. I'm not picking on anybody here. This is just fact. These clubs have held on to members at world-class rates, 10 and 11% attrition rates over this past 3 years that we've been measuring. But look at what they've done as far as attraction. 0.3 of a member a year means that each of these clubs figured out a way, 25-member clubs, to attract only 1 member in 3 years. You cannot maintain Rotary membership by bringing 1 member into your Rotary club every 3 years. Here's another one that brought 2 members into their club over 3 years. And here's a club that brought 3 members into their club over 3 years for an average of 1. So what you'll notice, of course, is that each of these on the right-hand column has a net membership loss rate commensurate with the rate that they've lost and gained these members. Here's a fact. When you see attraction rates like these in the attraction rate column on this page, below 10%, those are a guarantee of club decline. Why is that? Keep in mind that 10% attrition is about world-class. If you don't have a mechanism in place to attract members at a rate better than 10%, you're going to be losing ground. You can just set your watch by it. So some simple success targets. Chris Jones challenged me to make this really simple. If you didn't have any data on the club whatsoever, you could simply say that if you maintain an attrition rate below 15%, meaning a 40-member club lost fewer than 6 members, and maintain an attraction rate above 20%, meaning a 40-member club gains 8 members, you have a net 5% membership growth. You're right in the sweet spot of that consistent, moderate membership growth that we're talking about. So the takeaways I'd like you to make from this segment is, first, that this attrition thing is real. It's easily calculated. All this data comes right out of reports in RI. They're reports you can get, but to merge them into what you see as the MGI, it takes actually 3 different reports out of RI to merge this data together. You have to attract members faster than you lose them. And chronic membership decline, in our experience, is literally a symptom of leadership dysfunction within the club. A leadership that doesn't have its act together will be shown out, will be called out by chronic membership decline year after year. And here's the message to y'all. If these clubs could fix themselves, they would have already. If these were businesses and they realized that they were losing customers year after year after year, they couldn't figure out how to fix that themselves, what would they do? They'd hire somebody who knew how to attract customers to help them learn how to do that. That's where we are with these clubs, folks. These guys can't fix themselves. It's going to take some tough love. It's going to take some frank conversation, and it probably is going to take some intervention to help these clubs get better. Now, did you know that Rotary membership was seasonal? You know, seasonality we usually think of as spring, summer, winter, fall, but our seasonality is a little bit different because we have imposed seasonality upon ourselves. We bill twice a year, meaning that we bill in July, we bill in January. So clubs that have members on the books in those months get a bill. They react exactly rationally as you'd expect. They clear their books in June and they clear their books in December to avoid that membership billing on a semi-annual basis. So it's a self-inflicted seasonality, but it's a seasonality that most district leaders go into the year not understanding. And then they're horribly surprised in the last week of June when their membership gain melts away and they find themselves in the hole, a net loss despite how hard they worked over the course of the year. So if we were a seasonal business, we'd understand this seasonality. If we were selling Christmas trees or strawberries or anything else, we'd understand that we pretty much had to make our year in a 2-3 month window. Retail is not that dissimilar. They make their year between about November 1st and the end of January. So what we've done is we've modeled a success track. What would you have to do to overcome this annual seasonality? I'd like to explain the success track to you. This is the basis of the weekly membership update that we give you. Districts lose roughly 1% of their membership during the last few days or hours of December. They lose even more, 2% of their membership during the last few days or hours of June. So what does that look like? To finish the year with a net gain of even 0.5%, which actually in this business is definition of success, we need to go into December with a net gain of well more than the 1% we expect to lose, or something like 2%, to survive the year up, the December 31 up 1%. And we need to do the same thing in June, only we need to go into June stronger because we know we're going to lose 2%. We need to be up at least 2.5% to 3% on the 1st of June. So for a 2,000 member district, round numbers, makes the math easy. Here's what that success track looks like. Starts at a dead start on July 1st, and we need to grow our way up to plus 40 members by the end of, by the 1st of December, so that we can survive the end of the December with this predictable 1% membership loss, and we'll still be out of the hole, we'll be plus 20, and we'll be on track to begin building membership over the second half, when the clubs really should be hitting their stride, so that we end the 1st of June up 2.5% at least, because we know we're going to lose about 2% of our membership. That would leave us at 0.5% net gain. So we ramp all the way up to plus 40, we zigzag down to 20 in December, start in January, we ramp all the way, we need to be at plus 50 members. Now, what I usually see in a 2,000 member district is along about April, May, they're all excited about plus 10 or plus 20, forgetting completely that they're going to lose 40 of those members in June. You need to be on this success track in order to be somewhat assured of ending your year at or above break even. And you're saying to yourself, Terry, seriously? Is that for real? Yeah, folks, that's for real. We publish this data each week. Each of you are on that distribution list. If you're not, please let Patrick know. And this tiny URL is a permalink to that for 2019-20, tinyurl.com/2019-20 membership zone 33. Here's the other thing. Let's not forget this continues through midnight, June 30th, all the way as the hours tick away. And I've actually watched this, folks, on June 30th. It's almost like watching Yahoo Finance and watching a stock price. You can almost see the numbers move over the course of that afternoon. So let's take a look at July 1st, June 1st to July 1st, 2015. This is Rotary data globally. The numbers over on the left-hand side are 1,230,000 down to 1,190,000. That's roughly the axis over here. Look at this. 22,000 members disappeared in 1 month. Same thing happened again in 2016, June to the month of June. 24,000 members disappear off Rotary's books in 1 month. 2017, same story, and 2018 was unfortunately kind of a world's record at a net loss of 34,000 members in 30 days. You can see for yourself also the December zigs in the middle, but they aren't quite as dramatic as the ones at the end of the year. So to finish the year with a net gain of about 0.5%, keep in mind, you need to go into December 1st with a net gain of 2. You need then to start ramping to a net gain of at least 2.5% by June 1st to end the year positive. Now, the data we provide you week to week has that success track marked in the green dots, and we'll go over that in detail a couple of weeks from now in one of our future calls. So I'm hoping that you'll buy into this data. It's proven itself year after year after year. This stuff is real. The seasonality is real. Attrition is real. And if we can help our clubs understand that they need to get started on July 1, not September, not October, July 1. They need to have membership committees together now that are getting their wheels lined up to get a running start on July 1st. Again, we'll publish this membership data to you weekly, and I'm certainly available. You all know where to reach me. I'm certainly available to take time with you on the phone or in email if any of this is not clear enough for you to explain across your districts and across your clubs. We do have about a minute loose here. If we do have some time to take a question or two, if there are any, either text those or chat those to Patrick or just sing out.
Thank you, Terry.
Hearing none? Yes.
Yeah, I said thank you, Terry. Thank you for taking us through that. As you can tell, Terry has taken a very deep dive and now has years of information to establish these trends. This is real stuff, and he's imparting that because we, as I said before, we want you to understand July 1 what you're up against instead of the experience I had in August of 2015, looking back at a year as governor, saying, "Whoa, where'd all those members go?" So thank you, Terry. And next up is Carol Burdett, who is going to talk to us about building and motivating membership teams.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Terry. I would say as an immediate past district governor, the last weekend in June of 2019, yes, I was up over 40 members as a district, and then in the very last 2 days of the month, we then ended up just at even. It was like just like Terry predicted. So we all know that it happens. It's just how do we prepare for it? And one of those preparations is how do we have the appropriate team in place and them ready and motivated to do what we need to do to have a successful year. We've all heard the term This is not a one-man show. No leadership role in Rotary is set up to be up to one person. But I can promise you that growing our Rotary membership, creating a culture of growth, if we are to be successful, cannot be just one person. So building your team, if you are a district membership chair, is extremely important. It is the first step to success. And I would say to those of us, because I'm going to actually be chairing the membership committee in my own district this year, that sharing these same ideas that I will share with you today with your membership chairs across your district will also be beneficial to them. So how do we go about building this team? Normally, if we had a lot of time, I would say to you, please write down 4 things that you want to achieve this year, because a team can't help you if you don't know where you're going. So we don't have time for you to think through 4 things. So I'm going to ask you, just so you'll have your thinking cap on, chat up 1 thing that you know you want to achieve this year related to membership in your district. It could be related to satellite clubs. It could be related to Rotaract clubs. It could be how do you want to rescue small clubs? But it must be intentional. You will hear that word. You heard it from Patrick. You heard it from Terry. We must achieve our goals by being intentional. We know our expectations and creating a balance between what you want to achieve and the ability to execute. Don't be so far out of the realm of possibility that your team is discouraged, but set the expectations and let your team members know those specific goals and what you expect of each of them. Don't recruit them by saying, oh, you won't have to do too much. Instead, you want to arm them with exactly what your expectations are. And if you're smart, you will do that in writing. Share examples of success with them. We've just heard some successes that Terry shared with us. So how do we share those successes with the folks on your team? And talk to them about how to, if needed. Making sure that you're matching your team members with their skill set so that you can ensure that they will be successful. Don't choose someone just because you like them. In Rotary, it's very obvious that we have people that we love to work with and we love to associate with, but don't choose them just because of that. Choose a person that you think best fits the work that you need to have done. You want someone who will take ownership of the goal or goals you are giving them. Remember, you are the leader. Whatever the outcome is a reflection of your leadership. Thomas Edison said, vision without execution is a hallucination. We don't want to all feel like we've set a vision, but we haven't executed. So how do we execute? You have your expectations, and now recruiting the best people. Who fits? Think carefully about why you choose those leaders and how will you go about recruiting them. Now for me, when I want to recruit someone or get them to do something for me, I generally take them to lunch. Don't I, Frank Cox? Yes, that's how we usually go about getting people into the roles we want them to play. And I know right now that's not impossible. I mean, that is impossible. We can't take people to lunch. But the best thing right now is to talk to them personally on the phone. Tell them you want them to take seriously what you're asking them to do. As I said earlier, know exactly what you want from them. And it's best that you actually put that in writing. Assure them that you will provide resources that they need to do the job. And that is why Patrick and Terry and I and the other Rotary coordinator associates are here. We are here to help you know what those resources are and how to find them. Now, having a team training is great, and especially if we can have it in person. But this year, it may have to be done by Zoom. They need to hear your vision and be able to communicate back and forth with your expectations. And Zoom is a great way for that to happen. Going over the how to use the tools and resources, not just saying, here's a list of things, but helping them understand what those resources are that are available to them. Don't take for granted that they understand. Help them in understanding how to use those resources. And then I would say to you, delegate. Now, at times I'm a control freak, and I'm well aware that other people know that too. But when you feel good about the people you've chosen, you train them appropriately, and you've given them the right tools, then let them go and expect that they will help you bring your vision to fruition. In advance to July 1, make sure that you have a communication plan and an accountability plan in place, that you know these things in advance so that you can share with them how you will communicate. That involves knowing what your mode of communication is with each of the people on your team, knowing how often you will communicate, and knowing whether you will be communicating with them as a group or individually. Why is that important? Because sometime during the year, if you're not happy with their performance, you have to make some really important decisions. Will you just let it go? Will you try to do their job for them? Or will you relieve them of their responsibility and find someone else? Know this ahead of time. Have that plan in place. And then when you are communicating with them, think about this. Will your communication be positive? I always feel like it's easier to give someone a treat than beat them over the head. So you have to decide ahead of time, what will your communication be, positive or negative? Will you remind them of their goals? And then, will this be communicated to them quarterly, mid-year? And also think about the end of the year, rewards and awards, knowing that you've put thought into this ahead of time. For Stephen Covey says, start with the end in mind. That means that you know right now, as you are planning your year, that you need to be thinking about the plan for your end of the year celebration. Because I don't know about you, but I want to end my year in a district that says we have grown our membership and we have begun that steady culture of growth that Terry talked about. I'll just share with you, last year as district governor, my cart story. I set a goal. It was very ambitious. I started with the end in mind, and the end in mind was that the club in my district, that president was going to get to cut all of my hair off at the district conference if we met our goal. I knew each step of the way, what I wanted to share with each club, and how to involve the Rotarians in helping to reach that goal. Yes, start with the end in mind. I'm going to show you this great book, and I know, don't think I'm silly. Yes, this is a Dr. Seuss book. And if you look at the very end of the book, the last page, he says, your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. The mountain of growing our membership is waiting for you. As district governors and district membership chairs, we can make this happen if we stay focused and intentional. Thank you for listening today. And I'm happy to share my notes with you if you'd like. Patrick can help make those, get that out for you, to you if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. And thank you, Terry. I'm going to just mention, I think we're going to have a couple extra minutes I will send out a link. You may have seen this in the chat box. I will send out a link that'll have a video of this session. We'll have Terry's PowerPoint and other supporting materials in there for you to be able to refer to or to share if you wish. That should come out tomorrow. Next week, we will have another Tuesday 5 p.m., Thursday noon set of sessions that'll be designed around building your district membership plan. So we have that coming up on tap. We do have a couple of minutes. If there are any questions or comments, we would feel free to unmute yourself and share that with us. Or to use your space bar like Frank taught us. Becky, I think you're muted. You look.
Okay, better?
Better.
All right. I'm in a situation with a newly combined district as of this year. And without saying, hey, you're my team, too overtly, because an awful lot is being put on the backs of the assistant governors. In my head, they are my team. And I am starting to call the governors who have been assigned for the coming year and having some discussions with them about what we need to do and what I would like them to do. And so far that is going very, very well. And I guess my question is, does it not make sense to tap into those assistant governors as your team?
Becky, in many cases that will work. In some cases, assistant governors, depending on the other tasks and responsibilities they have, it can be too much. Some of that is going to be localized and depend on how your district is set up. But certainly the assistant governor has an interest and should feel responsibility in the health and vibrancy of all of his or her clubs. So yeah, they should be very interested. And if that works for you, if you've got a strong set of assistant governors who are not otherwise overburdened and they have the time and the ability to do that, that's certainly fine to tap in. If that's not the case, then you can recruit locally as well to help them. Right. Even the districts that have localized, say, membership advocates or whatever title they use, they work side by side with the AG. It's not a separate effort. They're working collaboratively.
Okay.
Rebecca, I was going to say, as the district membership chair in 7750, my membership committee is made up of people that are reflective of the areas around the district, and they will work hand in hand with assistant governors. But I think that will give you, to me, I feel like it's a double opportunity to reach clubs around the district because assistant governors do have other things on their plate. So thinking about having two people in an area to help you will be, I think, even more effective.
Okay, all right.
Got time for one more comment or question? And if not, we'll be good Rotarians and we'll ring the bell here by 1 o'clock. So we'll get everybody out on time. I appreciate all of you presenters. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all of you who attended today. As I said, next week we'll be talking about district membership plans, and that will be led by two other assistant Rotary coordinators who I will introduce then. So thank you all. Have a good week and especially be well. Bye-bye.